Yeah, a relatively new player in the training for governors is the National College, of course. Do you think they have a role, and if so, have they actually found the right one?
I certainly think they have a role, and I've done some work with National College in recent years, particularly around succession planning. But that was when they were separate from government. They were a quango that sat outside of government. Now they are effectively part of government, and that does, I think, change things to some extent. But having said that, all my experiences working with them have been very positive. I found them very, very willing to listen and to change and to improve their product in the light of comments and experience of other people. And given that local authorities are being cut and local government services are in decline by and large, it's not always true, but it is in many cases, then we do need good alternatives to that. And it seems to me that the National College both has a role and could be a very important provider of government training in future. Obviously at the moment their main concern is around training for chairs, but also developing the role of the NLGs.
Yeah, that's right. They have actually said that they have no intention of moving beyond training for chairs. That is their brief. I think what you said about the changing role of the local authority both makes it inevitable that, if not the National College and probably the DFE in one of its other manifestations would have got involved, are probably easier to take because several of us have been campaigning for their involvement with governors training at that level for some years. Those generally had a lot of support. The objection has always been, it actually destroys, fragments the integrity of training offered by local authorities, covering the whole government body, but local authorities are less able to deliver that now. Certainly the impression I get is that the local authorities are not complaining too much about the National College having got involved.
No, indeed, and I mean, I think local authorities should see it as an opportunity rather than a threat. National College is not going to be able to replicate what the local government services have done over the years. But what they can do is to provide a national standard, if you like, to which everyone else can aspire. And there's nothing to stop local authorities providing a lot of additional services for governors on the ground. So ideally, it seems to me that the two things should be brought together as closely as possible, so that, if you see it from the point of view of a governor on the ground wanting some training and support, it shouldn't matter particularly whether that comes from the National College or from the local government services.
Certainly really applies with NLGs, doesn't it? Because if they're providing support to struggling governing bodies, mentoring new chairs and so on, one could argue that really is a role, or has been a role for local authorities that they are losing. But then we also know that local authorities have struggled to do that over the years, just because of the sheer volume of governing bodies, the amount of support that's needed. But I do have some concern over the NLGs, which is of capacity. I think it's been a good development. I'm very welcome, and I've long argued that often the best people of governors are other governors. So that is useful, but there is a danger that too much will be expected of too few, really. Or even if we see a large increase in the numbers, you then create a different problem, which is monitoring. Because if somebody has to provide a quality assurance, you have to know that people going are good. You might be good at the time that you're appointed, but after a couple of years, if the world's moved on, you might not have done, you might have got a bit of slack, or you may in fact be very good at presenting, but actually be less good at the personal relationship side, which doesn't come out in most selection processes, but certainly does when you've got some difficult or resentful characters to deal with.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, still in the early stages, the national leaders of governance, I was involved in assessing some of the first cohort, and I have to say I was impressed with the quality of the individuals involved and of the process. which was focusing very much on their interpersonal skills rather than their extensive knowledge of the finer points of the governance law. And I do know a couple of NLGs pretty well as individuals, and they're both, I think, exceptional people and will do a fantastic job. I think my concern with NLGs is the way in which I think there's a bit of mission creep coming in, because buried deep inside some of the information about the new Ofsted is this idea that through the autumn, where HMI are leading school inspections, if the school is likely to go into a category and governance is seen to be particularly weak, then they're going to recommend a review of governance, nothing wrong with that, but they're looking at NLGs to do that review. And, okay, they may be very, very good at doing it, but it certainly wasn't the basis on which the first lot were recruited. And I think I'm right in saying that National College are asking which ones want to do it and then providing some training. And let's hope it works out. But it does seem to me that they're moving pretty quickly away from the original concept of a governor helping another governor, which is what the NLG's role was.
I think that's right. I think the more they get involved in that work, the less capacity they have for doing that, which is a shame. And there was some work which Cox and NGA did a few years ago, on mentoring chairs, and there were some instances where it happened successfully around the country, but it never spread as much as we'd hoped at the time. And here's an opportunity to spread, but it could easily be diverted. There is still that need. And also, I have a concern as to whether the bar has been set in the wrong place for NLGs, because your school hasn't been judged good by Ofsted. Correct in that. Leadership is good, but there may well be governors, in fact, who are working in schools which are very far from good, who are doing an excellent job, who are better able actually to help governors in struggling schools, and those who maybe have always been on a good or outstanding governing body and only ever seen good practice. And I think in particular, governor I know has been used a lot by the local authority to go in, or at least they put him into schools. They've had difficulties. He never qualifies an NLG, but in fact he'd be one of the best ones I can think of.
No, I agree with you, and it was a point that was made to the National College, I think, fairly early on. But on the other hand, I mean, some of the candidates that I spoke to had been through that process. They'd been chairs of governors in schools that were in special measures and had helped to lead the school out. So at least some of them had that breadth of experience. But yeah, I do think it is a very different kettle of fish being a chair of an effective governing body that's been effective for a long time in a school that's outstanding compared to one that's been on a very difficult journey from special measures to good, for example. Hopefully that they will change the criteria over time if they want to recruit more and more NLGs. And the way things are going, they'll need more and more NLGs. So rather than dilute the criteria, if they can widen them and focus particularly on those sorts of governors, I think that would be a very good thing.
They are recruiting currently, of course, the second cohort, aren't they? But then you get back to the problem of quality assurance, which is going to require quite a lot of input from the National College. And I wonder too if we're going to end up with NLGs as professionals, because currently they're required to give 20 days of their time. They can charge for extra on top of that. But if their workload increases, then there's going to be more charging. And that actually produces a slightly invidious barrier, doesn't it, between what's provided free. You make sure you have all your problems in September, saying in NLG, well, there's still got plenty of their 23 days that's come March, or refused them up and you're charging you.
We will see. One of the things that I'm interested in is this longer term analysis of where they've been used, how they've been used, what's happened as a result, what's been their impact. And I know the National College is pretty good at keeping tabs on that sort of thing, but I'll be interested, I think, in the first couple of reports that come out to see just how effective they are.
So I think our verdict on LGs is by and large optimistic, but with a few caveats.
Yeah, yeah.